The first panel discussion is the credit you deserve. It's for underserved SMEs as the hottest segment in fintech. And again, that will be moderated by Sean Stanley. Now, Sean, my apologies again. I'm not sure if it's Stanley or Stanley, but I'm going to go with Stanley for now, and you can correct me later. And he, of course, is from the Globe and Mail. Sean is the head of Globe Content Studio. He's the content marketing division of the Globe and Mail. His team blends audience data with journalistic intuition, I love that phrase, and experience to craft great storytelling on behalf of brands, positioning them as thought leaders with influential audiences across multiple platforms. Now, despite their criticality of the Canadian economy, small and medium-sized businesses have long been underserved, particularly in financial services, access to credit, capital, and tailored professional services, i.e. accounting, consulting, and tax, and to make them less expensive, but also often unattainable. Now, as this pandemic relief programs are drying up, small and medium businesses need the right advice and guidance to move forward, leveraging new insights and expertise. Again, this phrase, the stay awakes. That's the phrase that I'm hoping that everybody takes away from that session to understand what that means and what that means for your business. The new models emerging to appropriately serve them and the opportunities and challenges of new and emerging fintech solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we'd like to welcome Corinne Pullman. She's a Senior VP of National Affairs for CFIB, the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Welcome, Corinne. We'd also like to welcome Sean Stanley as the head of Global Content Studio, the content marketing division of the Globe and Mail. Welcome, Sean. Now, before we bring Michelle on, am I pronouncing your last name correctly? Is it Stanley or Stanley?
It is Stanley.
Stan, right.
On a regular basis, I get emails that start, "Hi, Stan." So if anyone calls me Stan accidentally, I'm cool with that as well.
Okay, but the best part is I know your first name is Sean, so I won't at least make that mistake. Awesome. And we'd also like to welcome Michelle Miller. She's the partner and VP of Core Services. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you very much. Excited to be here.
Amazing. And finally, we'd like to invite John McKinley, CEO of Carry Capital. And he'll be joining in a couple of moments.
All right. Are we ready to go, or are we waiting for John?
You can go ahead and start, John.
Okay, let's do that. So hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Great to have everybody here today. It's a pleasure to be moderating this panel of a few amazing experts from across the country. So I will start just by giving you a sense of why I'm here. So my background is in journalism and marketing, and I run the content marketing division at the Globe and Mail. But prior to this role, I spent several years as the editor of the small business section within the Report on Business section of the Globe and Mail. So I spent many years talking to thousands of entrepreneurs about all kinds of aspects of running a business, learned a lot from them, and actually launched my own events business for a few years. So I do have a background as an entrepreneur as well. So I bring all of that expertise to today's panel, but really you won't be hearing as much from me as you'll be hearing from the folks who are here to take everything that they know and have learned about small business over the past year or two, because we know it's been rather extraordinary times over the past while. And as we start to move out of those extraordinary times, we're now being hit by things like inflation and rising interest rates. So while there is tons of opportunity out there, as there always is with small businesses, there are also some challenges, and we'll be talking about both of those things today. So before we launch into some of the questions that I'm going to be asking, I know that Corinne and Michelle were already introduced in terms of their titles, but I want to give them the opportunity to talk a little bit about what they do day to day, so that all of you will have a sense of that before we start to get into what I would call the question period. So Corinne, let's start with you, please.
Great. Thank you, Sean, and good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here. As mentioned, I'm Corinne Pullman. I'm the Senior Vice President of National Affairs and Partnerships for an organization called the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. So CFIB, that I work with, represents over 95,000 small and medium-sized companies across the country. We do a lot of advocacy work on behalf of small and medium-sized companies with all levels of government, lots of research, and lots of work. Myself, I have been with the organization for over 20 years. So I've been advocating on behalf of small businesses for a very long time, and I've done that with all levels of government, but not just governments. I've done a lot of work on trying to improve relationships with the financial services sector, for example, given that they have a fairly influential impact on small and medium-sized companies across the country. So we do a lot of work trying to work with the traditional banks, credit card companies, fintechs, all to make sure that they're providing services that are useful and affordable for smaller companies as well. So hopefully we can chat a bit about all that today.
Excellent. And Michelle, over to you.
Sure, thank you. My name is Michelle Miller, and I'm the Vice President of Core Services here at MMP. I am located in Edmonton, Alberta, and I primarily work with small and medium-sized business owners to help them achieve their goals, whether that be accounting or otherwise. At MMP, we provide a wide variety of solutions for clients, which could include succession planning, bookkeeping, consulting, digital services, tax planning, business valuations, kind of the list goes on. And we also specialize in many of Canada's top industries. So we would have teams that focus on a particular industry, which could include food and beverage processing, agriculture, technology, professionals, real estate and construction, dealerships, and many more.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. So before we get started, I will mention that the chat is pretty busy. For those of you that have access to the Q&A section, please populate it with any questions you may have. And if you do throw stuff into the chat, I will try to keep an eye on that as well. We're going to talk for about the next 20, 25 minutes. And as I see questions coming in, we'll try to reserve some time toward the end to make sure all of you out there get an opportunity to ask some questions of any of our panelists if anything comes up. So please go ahead and do that, and I will do my best to keep an eye on it as we move along. So Corinne, we're going to start with you in terms of the first question. As pandemic-related funding starts to come to an end, which we know is going to be putting some stress onto business owners across Canada, what due diligence would you say is required by small businesses to avoid being taken advantage of, and in particular in the financial space?
Yeah, it's certainly been a very challenging time for small companies. There's no doubt about it. And the supports that were provided by government were, I think, helpful for many. But having them come to an end means that some businesses, some are going to be okay, some are going to feel a bit more strained and challenged over the course of the next little while. And so accessing credit may become a more important issue for many of them, and that can be a challenge. Given that circumstances that you may not be fully back to where you had been pre-pandemic, you may still have accumulated a lot of debt. So really the best thing is to make sure you're shopping around. Find out what kind of resources are out there. Are there, what do the traditional banks offer in terms of credit if that's what you're looking for, but also look at non-traditional methods. Are there new fintechs, new types of companies out there? Again, you have to do your due diligence though and make sure that they're actually providing services that are helpful for you at a cost that you can afford. Because some places may have great opportunities for small businesses to access credit, but there's a lot of fine print you should probably be working through. Make sure before you sign anything that you're going through that fine print and understanding what it is that you need to sort of be able to, what you're signing on to, how much you're going to be paying for it. But also, check out other types of sourcing. A lot of small businesses, talk to friends and family. They find other types of private investors. Certainly, lots of businesses use credit cards. Caution there. They can be helpful for a cash flow opportunity, not necessarily for longer-term types of debt opportunities. So there's lots of different things to look at, but do your due diligence. Make sure you are reading the fine print if you're actually signing off on something, but also make sure you're doing the research that you need to do to make sure you're finding the right products that are going to fit the business needs that you have right now.
So in terms of that fine print, it's one thing to read it, it's another to understand it. Do you have any suggestions for small businesses that read the fine print, but they're saying I don't know if I should be signing this, who do I talk to? How would that work?
Well, Yeah, very good question. Obviously, if you have some legal counsel, that would be a good place to go. You can try some advisors. I don't want to put Michelle on the spot, but certainly some accounting firms can sometimes help with that. Organizations like ours, we do a service where we do try to help our members with the fine print. So we have a whole area called business resources where we have people on phones that will walk you through and make sure that give you a second set of eyes on any type of contract like that. And certainly at the end of the day, a legal opinion is best, but there are other sources out there that could at least give you an idea of whether they think there's a caution here or not.
Okay, great. Michelle, anything you would want to add to that on the fine print side, just because you were cited?
Yeah, no, I agree with what Corinne said. I mean, the legal team is probably the best resource for you when it comes to reading through any contracts. But if you don't have somebody to go to, usually you've got, a bit of a team around you and see who might be able to read through, because different people would have a different take on different contracts. They might have a different experience and may be able to provide some insight that you hadn't thought of. So,
great. Thank you very much. And just like that, John McKinley has arrived. It's like magic. CEO of Carey Capital. John, good morning. Welcome to the discussion. One of the things we did off the top was just go a little bit beyond the job titles. So John, before I launch into your first question, maybe just give us a sense of who you are and what you do and any background we should be aware of before we get started.
Thanks, Sean. I apologize. I've gone through 3 different browsers now to try to get on, but it's good to be with you this morning. So I'm John McKinley. Just by way of background, I'm a career financial services practitioner and technology practitioner. I've been a banker, investment banker, partner at a couple of major consulting firms, an investor with OMERS, and joined Carey about a year and a half ago after I heard the story from the founders and was just so compelled about the small business space and helping small businesses in Canada.
Okay, great. So first question for you is, can you give us some strategies for small businesses that want to access credit? I know it's a bit broad, but I'm sure you've got lots of things you could cite.
Yeah, I think the key thing, and particularly as we've come out of a very tumultuous time and our by all accounts entering some more turmoil, the key thing is, obviously managing your cash flow, and you've got to kind of manage it both from a supply and demand perspective. And what I mean by that is making sure that you variabilize as much of your cost structure as you possibly can. So if things do look like there's a downward turn impacting your business, you've got to be able to take costs out and whittle down to the bare minimum to deliver your business. That's always important. Then on the supply side, you've also got to make sure that you've got lots of dry powder and some liquidity that you can call upon. And, that liquidity can come in a couple of different forms. It can come in the form of, like our business, a credit card, which provides intra-month liquidity and the potential to create a revolving facility. Liquidity can also come in the form of a traditional bank loan. Liquidity can come in the form of equity. So it's really important to have as much dry powder, anticipate the unexpected and be able to survive in tumultuous times. Growth is a different story. So if you're in a good space in a good part of the economy and doing well and have great growth prospects, liquidity is still important because a lot of small businesses fail to be able to kind of meet their full potential because they just can't tap into that liquidity, again, whether it's in the form of credit cards or charge cards or installment loans or equity. Always being thinking ahead and having a plan to be able to fund your business for growth.
Okay, great. Thank you. So Michelle, newer business owners, so people that are relatively new to launching, are not just challenged to find good partners. They may not even know what services they actually need. It's even that much more challenging to figure out where to start. So Where and how should they do that?
Absolutely. And Sean, when I think about this question, I go back to the saying, it takes a village to raise a child. And I know that doesn't make sense in the business sector, but I think the same about a brand new business. It really takes a team to make a business successful. And as a business just starting out, you probably don't have a large team with all the skill sets that you might need to get your business where you want it to go. And so also these skills are going to change as your business grows and new opportunities and challenges are faced. So I just suggest, look for outside support to flesh out your team in the beginning to ensure that you have all those skills that you need to grow. Find out what's most important for your business at this stage. Certainly you could go and sign up for every service provider, but that is not going to work for a brand new business who is maybe short on cash or tight on credit. So find out what is most important for your business. And also find the particular service provider that fits with your industry. And because there's a lot of service providers out there that cater to your specific industry, to your particular business size. So don't just, expect that the first person that you meet will have the right skills or be the right fit for you. Make sure you just do your due diligence and find the right one for you. I do think that having outside advisors provides that kind of fresh perspective and independent advice that sometimes you might not get within your inside team. And when it comes to what particular services to sign up for, again, there's endless service providers out there that will provide anything and whatever you might need. But the key is to find the ones that are going to provide the best return in your business, right? I know often we'll hear from new business owners who are trying to do it all. They are doing the HR, they're doing the IT, they're doing the bookkeeping. And that's an easy way to get burnt out pretty fast. That might work in the short term, but in the long term, you've kind of got to figure out, what's important to outsource and start small and scale up as you go. Free up your time so that you as a business owner can focus on the things that are most important for your business. So for example, you can hire a fractional CFO or a fractional IT director, folks that, can put just a few hours into your business per week. And as you need more, you can scale that up and grow more. Often, like John was mentioning earlier, credit can also be a challenge for new businesses starting out. So, I would suggest in particular, check out the Carry Card. It does have it is geared to fix that particular problem for small and medium business owners who are challenged in getting credit. So.
Okay, great, thanks. And John, at a certain point of this discussion, we'll get back to that credit card when we start talking a bit more about things like cash flow. But Michelle, I do see in the chat that Pat Finnerty says MNP always reflects the reality of small business. And I know one of the difficult things for small businesses is often they need credit in the early days because they literally can't manage cash flow because maybe they actually don't even have cash to start with. So what do you do as MNP if like a new business comes to you and is like, I don't know that I can afford your fees? How does that work?
Well, particularly at MNP, we've got offices in almost every smaller and larger center throughout Canada. And so our offerings are really tailored to small and medium business owners. And so if you just need, a little bit of advice every year, usually we can, include that as part of your fee. And usually we can invest some in time in your business so that in the beginning, when you don't have the cash to pay for it, we invest the time so that, later on, we're able to help you grow your business. And hopefully at a later point in time, you will need some more of the services that MNP provides. So we really try and work with small and medium business owners. That's what MNP is all about. That is who we're geared towards. And so I think, there's always a solution. So just come and chat with us.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So Corinne, we know that the possibilities with open banking is something that's super exciting for entrepreneurs, but most owners probably actually don't understand it. So we can tackle a little bit of that, but they stand to benefit from it because they're not well served by the big banks, as we've mentioned a few times already. So how can small business owners best educate themselves on their options when it comes to open banking?
Well, yeah, first of all, no one knows what open banking means outside of the folks directly involved in trying to make it happen, of course, right now. But yes, there are lots of opportunities that could come with open banking. And that, of course, includes competition, which is probably one of the things that has kind of kept Canada back a little bit in terms of providing good options for smaller companies, is the competition is not very big in that space in Canada. Open banking hopefully makes it easier for smaller businesses to shop around. And so open banking's still not quite here. It's still kind of in the mix and coming. So it's not necessarily something they can sort of access necessarily right now. However, there are obviously some innovative ideas coming into the fore, such as what Carrie's offering and other fintechs. But hopefully, as open banking becomes more prevalent, what that will also do is give opportunities for smaller companies to be able to take their data from one bank where they've been doing all their banking, instead of having to go to them and get them to provide all the information, then go to another bank to show them what they have. Open banking is going to allow them to do that, hopefully a lot more fluidly, and also provide other services that are going to help them actually manage their finances in a way that they may not, that they're sort of beholden to have to figure out themselves today. So there's going to be some great opportunities going forward. And I think, obviously it's going to be up to organizations like ours, groups like accounting companies and other new fintechs entrances to the space to make it clearer to small business about what it means for them, because it is a bit of an esoteric kind of term right now that no one really quite understands. So I think with time, I think hopefully as that becomes more available, as the structure becomes more available in Canada, and obviously the organizations that are going to be able to utilize that structure become more prevalent for small companies, that there will be a lot more information available to smaller companies about what it actually means for them on the ground and how it's actually going to help them. But in a nutshell, it's going to be about more competition and more services that can help small business manage their finances and shop around to make sure they're getting the best financial products for their companies.
Okay, and John, a nice segue to you, because of course you're operating in the fintech space yourself. So what are some of the challenges that fintechs are facing when it comes to competing, but also collaborating with the big banks? Because obviously that's an important piece when it comes to small businesses in particular.
Yeah, there definitely are challenges, and maybe more so in this country, frankly, than others, just because of the nature of the banking market being pretty condensed. Very strong regulatory environment, which is both of which have served us well in the past during times of financial crisis. But maybe I'll start with what Corinne was talking about in terms of open banking. So open banking is really important to our business as a lender. We need to see a track record of financial data to understand cash flow and to be able to really understand the seasonality of that cash flow, and to be able to determine the credit capacity and credit worthiness in many cases as well, but also pricing and risk-based pricing. So we need to see that data. The degree to which that data comes in through true open banking, which is API-driven data from point to point, will definitely create enormous efficiency within the whole adjudication process. We also want to see financial data. We're also part of our platform is also integrating our expense data with whether it's QuickBooks or Xero or what have you, but being able to have a bilateral agreement where we can see that data as well and reconcile that against transactional data coming from banks is really important. It's really important. So, I would say we're still in the early stages, as Corinne alluded to. I'm really hopeful that we catch up to other highly developed countries when it comes to open banking, like the UK and Australia and others. Balance sheet is an interesting issue for a fintech, any fintech. The banks obviously have all the balance sheet in Canada, really, when it comes to lending to small businesses. It generally all comes off the balance sheet of the banks. Making sure there's a really expeditious way of getting that to a fintech through partnerships with those fintechs, whatever that form of partnership takes, is really the best way to expedite getting money into the hands or capital into the hands of the small business clients. So that's always a struggle for fintechs, frankly, in every jurisdiction. So that's important. In any market, maybe particularly in Canada, when it comes to financial services, brand recognition is really important. No fintech, or very few, I should say, can afford to spend the marketing dollars and the brand building and brand recognition collateral that the banks can. So, in our case, we feel it's very important to partner with some known brands, financial services or non-financial services, trusted brands that obviously have lots of small business clients. So I think those are the key challenges. The technology is not a challenge for us in Canada. We've got a great cadre of IT universities and resources coming into this country that have incredible tech skills. So we're really blessed on that side of the ledger. But yeah, it's working with the ecosystem is really important, Sean, and we're very keen to be a partner with banks. We again, we're not so precious about our brand that we wouldn't subordinate it to whatever the right business is to create the traction.
Okay, thank you. So Michelle, one of the things John mentioned with QuickBooks, and one of the things I wanted to ask you about was, the benefits of onboarding a real-time accounting system, and then how to deal with any related hurdles that may come as a result of that.
Sure. So, I really think gone are the days of inputting your information, your bookkeeping into an Excel sheet, or bringing in your receipts to your accountant at the end of the year and saying, here, do my year end. Those days are gone. There are endless benefits to a real-time accounting system. Real-time data provides you with the information that you need to make the most informed business decision in that moment. So if your bookkeeping is not real-time, you're guessing at how much cash and credit you have available to you. A real-time accounting system, especially if it's held in the cloud, opens up access to your information to a larger team, including your external accountant. So it allows for that collaboration. So I can pop into a client's accounting system and take a look at how they're doing. I can forecast what their taxes are going to look like, provide some advice ongoing throughout the year instead of just that year-end one-time checkpoint. Things like using a digital credit card can allow business owners to issue individual cards to their team with a click of a button. So you can set spend limits, you can monitor their spend in real time. Many accounting systems in the cloud utilize technology that actually free up your time as well. So those transactions automatically load from your bank. You can set up rules so that those transactions are automatically coded. So for example, you can have anytime you're spending or anytime a transaction goes out to your insurance provider, you can have that automatically coded to insurance expense. So all of this, it works all together now, which is really great. That with a push of a button, it can basically be 90% done for you. Now, on the flip side, I know, that signing up for, a real-time account system in the cloud might seem a bit overwhelming if you haven't done that before. So, there are ways, if you wanted to do it yourself, you can go and watch online videos, webinars, you can get some short assistance from some of the providers. But if you're not a do-it-yourselfer, I would suggest getting somebody to help you with that. Reach out to a team that has experience that can do it for you or help you get through it. Make sure that it's done right the first time, because transitioning that correctly the first time will be very worthwhile. At MNP, we can help with that, but there's plenty of other service providers that can do that as well.
So just very quickly, what would you do with an entrepreneur that comes in with the shoebox of receipts?
We would probably set them up with an online accounting system and say, next year, let's do it this way. Because to be honest, for us, even internally, it's more efficient to have that accounting system do it than for us to manually type in all the information.
I think it's just good to know for some of the entrepreneurs out there that they don't have to be too embarrassed if that's still the case, because I know it is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, Corinne, let's talk about the impact that the combination of inflation and rising interest rates is having on this already, semi-battered group of business owners. Not all of them, of course, but some of them still. We know that small business owners across Canada have an average debt of about $160,000, which is, quite a lot to shoulder. So, what do you see happening out there in the real world, and are there ways to mitigate it?
Well, as you said, this really does vary from business to business and sector to sector. Certain sectors have been much more affected by the previous 2 years than others. Having said that, the removal of those supports back in beginning of May will have an impact on some businesses. And with inflation flying as much as it is right now, everybody's affected by that. And it doesn't matter if it's your customer or your business owners. As a result, customers may not be going back as much as they would have previously, simply because prices are going up for everybody, and where everybody's being a bit more cautious of how they're spending. Our latest data from June show that only that 54% of our members are still not back to normal revenues, some since before the pandemic. We're already seeing, as we suspected we would, increases in bankruptcies. Back in March, which is the latest stats that Statistics Canada has released, business bankruptcies were up 33%. So this is probably just, unfortunately, we're going to probably see a bit more of that before it starts coming down and normalizing once again. It could take another year or two for us to get back into normal. So how do you help mitigate? Well, I think we go back to some of the stuff we talked about at the beginning, which is do your due diligence. Some of what John talked about as well. Look at your cost structures. What can you pull out? What can you manage? What do you need in order to keep your business running the way it needs to run for now? Just making sure that you're looking at all of your expenses, what it is that you can potentially cut for the moment, what your suppliers. I know supply chain issues are an issue as well right now on top of everything else. There's just layers on layers, I think, of what can seem like really difficult challenges to get through as a small business owner. But there are supports out there. There are organizations like ours. There is professional services like Michelle's. There are innovative companies like John's that are all here to try to help smooth and figure out ways to help businesses through this difficult, if they're going through a difficult time. So, it's really... it's important for folks to know that they're not alone, that there are many businesses going through these challenges, and there are organizations out there that are willing to help and try to figure out strategies for what you can do in the short term. And that could be anything from just looking at your daily costs up to trying to figure out if you need to restructure some way in your company, or even having to potentially reach out to somebody who helps you through the insolvency process, right? So all of those things are options. It doesn't have to be white or black. There are grays in between. And so make sure you just get out, get the help you need. There's lots of it out there. And I think that most hopefully will get through to the other side.
Thanks, Corinne. And I think we can all agree on that particular sentiment. We're in times of volatility. So, John, I know you had referenced cash flow earlier, but maybe you can help with some specific strategies around managing cash flow, because that's probably the most important thing that small business owners can influence over the next little while. And if you want to talk a bit about your credit card and how it's differentiated from like a bank card as part of that, please feel free to do so. So over to you.
Yeah, and maybe that's where I'll focus, Sean. And as Corinne mentioned, we've recently completed a survey with some other parties, and 57% of small businesses in Canada that we surveyed report that it's more difficult managing cash flow today than pre-pandemic. So it's definitely something that was near and dear to our hearts as we started Carry. We started Carry with a very earnest and sincere interest in helping small businesses in Canada grow. It's such a huge part of the economy. 97% of businesses in Canada are small businesses. They employ 70% of the Canadian workforce. So, as small businesses go, so goes the Canadian economy in many ways. So Carry was born out of that. Carry is a platform, a credit card platform that has lots of the things that Michelle talked about in terms of being able to manage spend on the credit card program, having the controller of the small business be able to kind of do all the administration around that spend and issue cards, both physical and virtual or digital cards. So it's a great platform. There's an efficiency play, but also there's a massive liquidity play, whether it's a charge card or a credit card. Ultimately, we'll get into the installment lending business because we can see the capital assets when they're purchased on the credit card, and we can roll that into an installment product. And all of these elements are important for managing cash flow for small businesses, whether it's intra-month cash flow, whether there's the need to trigger a revolving element of that cash flow, or whether there's the need for a larger spend item that can be smoothed out over time, amortized over time. So those are really important dimensions. We are, deeply committed to continuing to evolve and grow our balance sheet. It's always a challenge for an organization like ours, a relatively new company, although we've got some very senior practitioners on our leadership team who've been in the financial services space for years and years and certainly understand how to do cash flow-based lending. And cash flow-based lending is what's really important because it's very difficult for a bank to look at a small business and be able to create a synthetic cash flow analysis based on that small business. The economics of that don't work when you're always doing it by hand or manually as opposed to through AI, machine learning, what have you. But that's really important to the business, and it's there is a predictability to it, and there's a sensitivity to it and a seasonality to it. So it's really important to our business. We believe it's really important to the small business economy. But another key dimension is so many of the small businesses in Canada today, 70%, whether they're on a credit card, using a credit card, or a loan, they're personally guaranteeing that loan. And that's a very difficult situation to put a small business owner in. Sometimes they're not always aware of all of the implications, although I think most are, of pledging all of your personal assets against a business that should be able to be judged and on the merit of the business itself, judged from a cash flow perspective and a growth perspective. And that's a really important thing in this country, that we flip that switch and that we provide liquidity to this really important segment of the market on the merit of the business itself, not on the merit of the value of the home of the owner or owners of the business.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So before we wrap up, Michelle, I have what I think is a very important question because we're just coming out of tax season. But I'd like to know on behalf of the small business owners out there whether there are any new or changing taxation issues that they should be aware of over the course of the next year.
For sure, Sean. We can't end this without a tax question for the accountant, right? So I do have a couple things. The first one is the 2021 federal budget introduced a new tax incentive which allows businesses to expense up to $1.5 million of capital purchases immediately. So that's something for folks on this call. Normally, capital purchases, if you're buying a vehicle or you're buying a piece of equipment, you would have to write that off for tax over a period of time. But now you can actually expense up to $1.5 million immediately, which is a great tax benefit. So if you think that you've got some larger capital purchases coming up, just check in with your accountant to make sure you're eligible for that. But it might be something worthwhile for your business. I guess switching gears a little bit, not exactly tax related, but I think fitting for our conversation today is also in 2021, the Government of Canada introduced the Canada Digital Adoption Program, which consists of two different grants for businesses. The first one, the Booster Technology Program, offers grants to medium and small businesses who want to adopt new digital technologies. The grant covers up to 90% of the cost to hire a digital advisor, up to a maximum of $15,000 to develop a digital adoption plan. So to be eligible for that program is fairly simple. You must be incorporated either federally or provincially, or be a Canadian resident sole proprietor. You must be for-profit and privately owned, have between 1 and 499 full-time employees, and have at least 500,000 of annual revenue. If you're able to access that program, you can then subsequently also access a 0% loan from BDC to facilitate the acquisition of new technology out of that program. If you don't meet those requirements, there is another grant that you might want to look into, and that's the Grow Your Own Business Online grant, which is up to $2,400 to allow businesses to essentially help with their e-commerce ability. If you need any help with any of these programs, check them out online or get in contact with us. We can also help with those.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. So Ivana, I hope that also helped answer your question that you had in the chat. And I see that Sarah Delaney has also provided some helpful links there as well. So we're out of time. I want to thank Corinne. I want to thank Michelle. I want to thank John for all their expertise. I hope it was helpful. So to all the business owners out there, enjoy the rest of the next few days, and good luck as you make your way through the world, and all the best in your growth and success going forward. And thank you for having me. Shiraz, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. And before you guys go, I have an important question for all of you. And let's see if I word this properly. By the way, John, we took an internal poll over here, and everybody voted that you have nicer hair than me. I just can't win today. I
find that hard to believe.
Yeah, I just can't win today. I can't win. And so, Michelle, if you were to say, who is your ideal client? Who is the person that you serve and you serve well?
For me personally, it is somebody who's
MNP,
very
right?
entrepreneurial. I love somebody who's willing to take risks and challenges and has some big ideas, because that for me is exciting to deal or work with somebody who's excited about their business and has something cool to offer.
Fantastic. So I'm hearing a lot of passion. That's amazing. Corinne, who is the ideal small business that should join CFIB? I think the default answer is everyone, but who really should be joining CFIB?
Well, obviously, we welcome all. We don't care size or structure or sector, but obviously, where I think we can have the most benefit, we obviously have a lot of business owners who've been around for a long time, because usually it takes a few years to sort of look beyond building your business to sort of what else do I need to make sure I can continue to succeed. And sometimes they realize advocacy is an important part along with other tools. But I think where we can really also be helpful is on startups and newer businesses who are needing that extra help. And for a small fee of membership, we can provide all kinds of extra help, right? In regards to, we're not only advocates, we're also a information and advice type of organization. And we have advisors. We have over 30 across the country who all they do is try to help businesses with what's going on every single day. We ask questions about HR, about financing, about rules and regulations. So
there's a saying
sorry, go ahead.
No, thank you, Corinne. There's a saying in parenting, it takes a village to raise up a child. And I don't think people realize the ecosystem that is available. And you're right, the value that you get for the membership costs, you're tremendously above value. I'm not saying that you should charge more, don't. But the point is, the amount of value that you can have that to invest and get that community from CFIB, great stuff that you're doing over there. Now, Sean, head of Globe Content Studio, the Globe and Mail. I gotta tell you, like, Globe Content Studio, it just sounds fantastic and sexy, to be honest with you. It's just a fantastic title. What is it who do you serve well?
So first of all, no one's ever said that to me before.
I said the title, just for the record. For the record, everybody, I said the title was sexy. Okay,
yes,
all right.
Yes, that's fine. Either way is good. So, I think the key thing with the content studio is that we operate like a startup within a large organization. Actually, the Globe is more like a mid-sized organization. We have about 500 employees. So it seems, because it's old and is a traditional business, much larger than it is, but we're very firmly a mid-sized business. But, I operate with a lot of autonomy, but ultimately what I try to do is help businesses through content, essentially, right? And businesses of all sizes. We have small clients, we have mid-sized clients, and obviously we have a lot of enterprise level clients as well. But I start by saying to a business, like, what are your challenges? What are the things that you need to overcome from a perception standpoint within the market? And then how can I communicate your value proposition through content and through the Globe and Mail's website and newspaper and various other properties in which that content appears. So that's really our goal. That's our aim.
That is absolutely fantastic. And folks, you can reach Corinne, Sean, and Michelle. Drop your contact in the chat. Just reach out directly. They're nice people. They're smart, but they're actually nice on top of that. So it definitely helps. Reach out to their teams and see what you can do to benefit from the work that they do. Now, John, I'm going to wrap up our session with this. Congratulations. I mean, today you're launching the Carry card. And this has been a long time coming. We are going to get into what the Carry card is and what it's all about during another session. And so I'm just trying to tease everybody on to that, because right now we are going to be joined by Tony Chapman himself. And so we want to just thank you all, panelists, for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your day. John will be hanging out with us for the next couple of days, and we look forward to finding out a little bit more about the Carry card. Thank you all.